Processing time of analysis services can be decreased up to 90%. It's huge. Partition-based processing is a very powerful feature that enables faster cube processing. It is available under Customize Manage Partition. List of deployed cubes and a very simple setup how to set up the partitions. So we have already set up the partition for sales cube. We have the setup was actually done like this. If I would do it, the current period would be 2 months, and intermediate would be 1 month, and we would just say click and add. That's the whole setup needed for a cube to be set up as a part of the partition-based processing. So let's have a look into this sales value entry. We have period number 1, which is a current period, and in this period all the value entries that are younger than 1st of February will be read, imported, and processed, aggregated, indexed, and so on. Then we have an intermediate period that is January. So this 2 month is calculated. Today is 14th of March. So by the end of the period, which is month and 2 months back. So February and March is the current. Jan is intermediate, and everything else is the archive. How this works? Okay, so first time when we deploy and process, it will be processed full without partition feature. The reason for that is because we have to apply rules and permissions from previous process. Then the second process will be also full and will be partition based first time. And the third portion will be incremental SSIS based partition that is really very fast. So for example, if you would have 4 years of data and this setup, only 3 months would be updated, and compared to 48, that's a huge gain in processing time. Now, in order to use this, there are some prerequisites. You must have a SQL Server 2016 Standard Edition or later. Doesn't have to be Enterprise. You have to have SSIS option, which is a part of the setup in BI4 Dynamics, which means you must have SSIS integration services installed. So this is integration services setup, and you must have incremental processing. Now everything else is taken care by our logic behind. So what does this logic makes? So we have seen the setup for these cells. Okay, so let's have a look into analysis services. This is our analysis services database, sales analysis. This is partition. You see by the name 01, it's current. The period length is in the name because we can afford this, writing it with SSIS script, and it's 2 months. So if I double click here, I see how the script has been built, and the same query that we have seen before is visible here. So actually what it does, it takes everything from fact sales value entry with a filtering a date that's greater than this. This is the logic, right? So the intermediate has the length of the period here, that's Jan, right? And this is checked daily. As long as this is in the range of the min max border of the period, nothing happened. When the upper boundary of the current period, that is the end of the March, will pass, so on the 1st of April, then intermediate partition will be merged into the archive, and the whole set of data will be reset and shift for 1 month, and processing will be done according to new boundaries. The setup options doesn't have to be always a month, it can be anything else. So for example, if I would have, let's say 4 weeks, okay, and I just say click and add. So each cube can be set up differently depending on the needs. So the retail usually has a shorter closing times, so that might be 2 weeks, you see, and then you're processing only a small portion of the data. And this is set and it's fine, so the numbers of the period are different. So what's here, there is nothing wrong. It just says that the binary for our query is built around the posting date or a date. If a fact does not have this, like this fact account schedule doesn't have a date, it's many-to-many relation between the GL entries and account schedule, so there is no date. For that reason, this cannot be processed there. Also, if you have measure groups that are distinct count, also not. So here you have order date. It has to be full snapshot, so that's nothing wrong. Just the nature of the cube fact is designed so that doesn't fulfill these requirements, and it's working fine. One more thing, I can also show you how the dimensions are processing. What our application BF for dynamics does, it creates two packages. One is to process cubes with the setup that we have done in BF for dynamics, and one package is SSIS package for process dimensions. You cannot access these packages because they are encrypted, they are saved in our instance, but for the purpose of demonstration I'll just explain how dimensions are processed, because dimensions can have also a lot of data. So as you see, we are using for all dimensions processing option update, which means that if incremental update is set up in analysis services, and if there is a setup for our cubes to use partition-based processing, the dimensions will be processed with an update option, which means only new members will be updated. Again, this is the fastest option to process dimensions from data warehouse to analysis services. So this is again a great enterprise feature with a simple setup that tremendously speeds up processing of analysis services cubes.